Good evening. I will now call the September regular meeting of the council to order at 6 o'clock. I will ask if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am declaring a conflict with the Kiwanis fee waive request, which is item number 22 agenda, as I said, as a board member for the Kiwanis Club. It's not a pecuniary interest, however, it's a perceived, perception interest, and yeah, I'm just going that way.
Thank you very much. Are there any further declarations? Seeing none. We will now go straight into delegations. And so I will call our first Victoria Road from Ingersoll Kiwanis, please.
Good evening, and thank you for having us today. On behalf of the Ingersoll Kiwanis Club and our elite athletes here, we wanted to come tonight to thank you in person. Even on. Figures. So thank you in person for the funding from the Community Development Fund, I believe, for these athletes to travel to the Karate Canada Nationals that happened back in July. So just to give you a little bit of background, in karate there are a few different disciplines. So there's kata, which is like forms, and then kumite is the sparring. So athletes compete in about 5 tournaments throughout the year, and at the end of the season, out of Ontario, the athletes with the highest point totals have the opportunity to represent Ontario at the Nationals event. So this year, we had 4 athletes go, Yasser, Ziad, Matthew, and Olivia. It was Olivia's and Ziad's first year, and the second year for both Matthew and Yasser, so I'll let them tell you a little bit more about their experience. But I also just wanted to acknowledge the fact that in the bigger cities like Toronto, where there's a lot more access to high performance training, the athletes maybe choose one discipline and focus on that. Our athletes here, to kind of have a more well-rounded approach, they compete in both kata and kumite, so both disciplines, on top of their regular basics training. Just last summer, Yasser and Ziad received their first Dan black belts, and Matthew his second Dan. So the difference kind of in the training levels between a lot of the clubs in Toronto and those areas is a little bit different. So when they achieve something like this, it's an even bigger deal for us. But I'll let them speak to their experience.
Dear council members, I would like to show our sincere thanks towards the funding towards our karate program. Your support means a lot to us, and the funding will help bring the benefits to karate to our community. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
How did you do, Yasser?
At Nationals in kata, I had done better than last year. I made it past the first round, but then unfortunately I slipped and lost, which is okay. I learned a lot. I learned to keep my stances solid and my punches stronger. Then in kumite fighting, last year was my first year, and I had no clue what I was doing. But this year I had a bigger idea what I was doing, and I felt like I did a lot better. I had more techniques in there, and I just felt better. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would like to thank you for giving me an opportunity to go into nationals for my first year. This was my first year, like they said. I did okay in fighting, in sparring. I got 5th, and in kata, I made it past the first round and also made an oopsie. But I would really like to go again this year and get better results and bring the gold medal back to Ingersoll. And once again, thank you for giving us the funding. I really appreciate it. Without you guys, I wouldn't even make it that far. Thank you.
So it might have been my first year at Nationals, but it was also my first year competing elite in general after a 4-year break from karate. And I went not knowing what I was going to do at all. And I placed 9th out of 14. And it was really fun, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without your funding. So thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. And thanks for showing your support.
All right.
And so I am not only just an athlete at the Ingersoll Dojo, I'm also a coach for our younger students here. So your support means a lot. It really helps them improve, and I see that, and that really means a lot to me personally. So I'd just like to thank you for that.
And you went as well, right?
Yeah, I went as well, sorry. I played third in my pool, so I didn't make it out of my pool. You need to be top 2, unfortunately. But we are working towards better results next year, practicing pretty much every day. So cheers to that.
Thank you very much.
Oh, just before you go there, just before you sit down, I do want to congratulate everybody on behalf of council and Ingersoll for representing us at the Nationals. It's no small feat. And thank you very much for coming back and sharing your stories with council. That also means a lot. And we're proud to support those who represent us. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I do not believe we have a oh, perfect timing. We do have representative for a second delegation.
We're supporting local restaurants.
Not a problem. Feel free to come up to the lectern when you're ready. Oh yeah, in the meantime, we will take care of the resolution for our first delegation. Councillor Louise, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hallerou, that the Council Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the delegation from Victoria Road of Ingersoll Karate as information.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
So, Mayor, are you okay if I circulate the annual report?
Absolutely, please do.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. We can scroll down. It might be further down. Let me just look. Oh, okay, that's not, yeah. All right. Right, so I do see that you've received the annual report, but not the presentation. So I'll speak to, we're fine. So anyway, my name is Louise Wardrop. I'm the Executive Director.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Council does have the presentation on their agenda, so council can follow along with that.
Well, and that's the annual meeting, or annual report, as opposed to the presentation.
No, your actual presentation.
You guys have it.
Yes.
Thank you. And Brian, you've seen it already, Mayor. Perfect. So, but I'll let you know when to click. Thank you. Okay. I don't need to work. I'm just a working machine, aren't I?
Did you get it?
Yep. We're good. Thank you. So my name is Louise Wardrop. I am the Executive Director of Oxford Community Foundation. And I am joined here with Kim Parker, who is on our board. Many of you are quite familiar with Kim. She's a resident of Ingersoll. And the purpose of today's presentation is to give you some information on what we've been up to, and then also some opportunities on how we might work together going forward. So yes, thank you. We're on page. If I would have put the page numbers on here, that would be helpful. Page 3 now, please. Thank you. Many of you are familiar with, one of the questions we get quite frequently is, what is a foundation? Many of you are familiar with what a private foundation, some of the big ones like Bill and Melinda Gates. Private foundation, private money going to support their specific interests from a philanthropic perspective. Public foundations are a little bit different. And you're most likely very familiar with the Woodstock Hospital Foundation and other universities or colleges. Those are also public, those are public foundations created by public for public entities. Alma mater, patients, family and friends, for a specific purpose. We, on the other hand, are a community foundation, by community, for community. Next slide, please. And our purpose at Oxford Community Foundation, our reason for being, is to make Oxford better. And we do that by, first, helping people and organizations set up funds to support our community. Legacy or community funds. So many of our fund holders will have specific areas of the community that they'd like to support, and I'll show you examples of those in a little while as well. But set up funds based on their areas of interest or the community as a whole. And we take, so on to the next slide, we take, oh, so back up to the one that says investments, yes. We take those donations and we invest those donations, pool them together, invest them, and with that investment income, we grant back to our community. Now we can go on to the next one. And we support our community we support the entire community. And community means a lot, and it means something different to everyone. Community can be arts and culture that you might find very important to you. Health and wellness is important for all of us. Sports and recreation. Where we live, work, and play, and all of those aspects of our community are important to each of us. Next slide, please. By the end of this year, so from a historical perspective, we'll have granted more than $2 million back to our community. So that's probably a number that surprises many of you, because we are Oxford County's best kept secret. We have doubled in size over the last 5 years and have granted, like I said, it will be $2 million by the end of this year to 115 different charitable organizations, local charitable organizations. So how will we accomplish that type of granting? And this is the slide that you'll move on to. The first thing that we do is we keep money in Oxford for Oxford. So on slide 10, I think it is. Oh, 8. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you got it?
I think we're doing okay.
You could got it.
Okay. So, and you'll see, if you're on slide 8, you'll see a number of, the top right-hand side of the slide, you'll see a lot of different faces. So those are families and individuals. The Hawkins family is one that's near and dear to Ingersoll. The Hawkins family and friends set up a fund so that we'll forever remember Lori and the kids through bursaries as well as through sports, because that's where her husband, that was his main area of interest, was hockey. But each one of those people are Oxford County people that have set up funds for Oxford County. So we keep money in Oxford County. Next slide. We also bring new money into Oxford County, and that's through partnerships. We are one of 210 community foundations across Canada, and we are each supporting our communities in various different ways for whatever our community needs are. And through those partnerships with government, with Royal Bank of Canada Foundation, Maple Leaf Fund, we will have brought $800,000 to our community by the end of this year. That is $800,000 that would not have been available to Oxford County if Oxford Community Foundation didn't exist. And that, oh, thank you so much. So here. So on this slide, I think is also important to note, so you see a number of, and people automatically think of individuals and families. But you also see on the bottom right-hand side, number of community organizations. I did go back to this slide because I did want to point that out. So Oxford County Library Fund, the Thamesford Lawn Bowling Club, who has ceased to exist, sold their property and set up a fund in support of Thamesford and area. So there's many different organizations that have also established funds to support community as well. Now, part of bringing new money and keeping money in, you're wondering, what have you done with it? So from a granting perspective, we support the entire community. And on this slide, you'll see a number of different examples that are very specific to Ingersoll. When we look to grant, we look to ensure that we're supporting our entire community, Ingersoll, Tillsonburg, all of the different municipalities. And over the years, we've supported the Choral Society, Strong Start, literacy programs in Ingersoll, the Creative Arts Center, buying new sewing machines for the Creative Arts Center, and those, I couldn't believe how quickly those courses filled up. Kids want to learn how to create, and so that was a very popular purchase for them. Big Brothers and Big Sisters, I know that it is now Oxford, but Deb and her team have done wonderful things in Ingersoll, and of course the Oxford organization continues to do the same. But in your annual reports, you'll see other examples of grants. That is just 1 year of grants. All of our you can take a look at our annual reports that are online for stories of all of our other grants throughout the years as well. So what's possible? So that's really good history, really good progress, really good future, but what's possible as well? So earlier I did say that we have 210 community foundations across Canada, and we are in constant contact with each other. We hear what works in other communities, and we share information. So I'm going to tell you about three projects and funds that have been established elsewhere that I think that might work quite well here as well. Petrolia Fund through Sarnia Community Foundation established a fund, the community of, I think there's about 6,000 people there, started a fund, one person with $30. That fund is now $300,000 and grants about just over $15,000 a year to kids' playground, to chairlift or an elevator in a senior center and in a church, to winter coat programs, to whatever the community is needed at that very local level. So that's the Petrolia Fund. Norwich, just local, just down the street. We've had a anonymous donor provide a $10,000 donation to kickstart the Norwich Community Fund. So there's a challenge for Ingersoll. We already have one of those funds right here supporting Norwich. We'd love to see the same thing happen in Ingersoll. And I know you have the Ingersoll Community Foundation as well that supports the community and does a very good job at that as well. The second one, and this is the one that's been garnering quite a bit of attention at other council meetings and at the county as well. The Abbotsford Agricultural Enhancement Fund. Abbotsford, BC, just like Oxford County, we're seeing quite a bit of a good portion of their land being used for development purposes. Their communities were growing, just like Ingersoll is growing, and agricultural land was being used for development purposes. So what the city decided to do was any land that was purchased for development purposes, industrial or residential, and out there it's being sold for $200,000 an acre. $20,000 per acre goes into a fund to support the local agricultural community in enhancing and sustaining their agricultural business. And for us, just like they would do there, they work very closely with the university that's very heavy in ag as well. And I think, we have University of Guelph here from an innovation perspective, and even Western. I know Kim is heavily involved with Western and some of the agricultural innovation that's coming out of our local colleges and universities, and partnering here would be a wonderful opportunity as well. The third example, Prince Edward County Youth Center. So what this community did, they had an old movie theater that was about to be demolished. No one was interested in doing anything with it, but it was a cornerstone of the community. And so a group of local residents came together, fundraised to purchase that building, and so set up a fund to capture donations with their local community foundation, and 90% of any donations into that fund was used for the capital expenditures, for the purchase of that building, or for the renovation of that building, and 10% of those donations were held in the fund so that organization, that youth center, would have ongoing operating grants on an annual basis. Establishing an organization is one thing. Ongoing operating expenses is also needed to keep that youth center going as well. So those are three very good examples of what other communities are doing, and just a teaser of some of the things that we might be able to do here as well. So, almost there. Just like that youth center, well, we need operating dollars too. So my invitation to you is to join us at the Warden's golf tournament next Thursday as either a golfer or to sponsor the event. I know Ingersoll has typically in past submitted a team, and we hope to see some folks from Ingersoll there again this year. And finally, I have I'm very privileged to work with a great group of people, and here's many of you might know some of the folks that are pictured here. Again, representation from around the county, and they're just a wonderful group of people to work with. And finally, contact information, and so I welcome your calls and your questions. Thank you, Mayor Petrie.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the delegation? Seeing none, I thank you very much for coming to present.
Thank you.
And I know I believe we do have a team. We are signed up for the Warden's.
Oh, are you? Perfect. I didn't see your names. Okay, so I didn't, so we've got some golfers in there. Excellent. Or just someone who's coming out to have fun for the day.
People who like to support good causes.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
With that, I will ask Councillor Halleray, you have a motion to accept the delegation.
Yes, I do. Thank you, through you, Mayor. So moved by myself, Councillor Halleray, seconded by Councillor Hudson, and the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received the delegation from Louise Wardrop, Executive Director, and Kim Parker, Board Member of Oxford Community Foundation, as information.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, that the items contained in the September the 11th, 2023 consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will move to Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence for the minutes of the regular meeting, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the minutes from the August 14th, 2023 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll now move into special reports. The first one is CS-016-23, and I will turn that over to Kyle, please.
Good evening, Council.
Welcome.
Thank you. So a fairly self-explanatory report in front of Council. The tender for one of the trucks that was in the capital budget this year came back at $6,000, a little over $6,000 over budget. So looking to pull from surplus of capital budget projects in 2023 to be able to fund the purchase of the truck.
Questions of the report? Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Halleru, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Why do we seem to have issues with getting bids on some of these tenders? Is it, yeah, do you have any insight as to why?
I know that we reach out to all the local dealers that this opportunity is available, and unfortunately, we've only got one bid back on this tender. I'm not sure why other dealers aren't providing bidding, but we do reach out to let people know that the opportunity is available. But as to why they don't, I'm not sure.
Councillor Halleru, please.
Thank you, through your mayor. My question is, if we have a budget for it, can we not go out and find something that is in our budget, like, or is it a specific brand, a specific type, and that's the price in the market, and we have to? And is this an electric vehicle too?
So not an electric vehicle. We put out an RFP that has all the specifications of what we're looking for in a truck. It's not a specific brand or type or anything like that. So any dealership is open to bid. And yeah, it's open to anyone.
Yeah, just expand on that. As part of the procurement process that we do have, it would make it difficult to just, it may be perceived as unfair to go out and just try to find one at a specific dealership. That's why the RFP process. I do see Mr. Graves' hands up there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we are also looking at electric vehicles, but we don't yet have the charging stations installed in our various sites. So we're working on that this year to get those in place so that we can go out for those tenders. But yeah, we do always try to get vehicles within the price ranges, and we put them out in a number of places. We know also, though, that some of the trucks, because of the vendor record and some of the bidding processes that happen, they really drive down the prices on that, which means there aren't a lot of profit in those. So there may discourage some people from bidding. Recently, the building department put in a tender for an SUV type vehicle and got many different bids. So it sometimes just depends on the type of vehicle and what they think they can make out of it.
Further questions? Seeing none. Deputy Mayor Wilson, I believe you have a resolution.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report CS-016-23 as information, and that Council approves the transfer of surplus funds to purchase the new truck from Searles Motor Parts for a price of $51,119 plus plates and registration.
Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now move on to the Community Improvement Plan review. Curtis, please.
So the reports in front of council, basically what this report is regarding is the strategic plan identified a review of the community improvement plan. So we thought we would bring a report to council to determine what council's interest was. If council's interested in leaving it as status quo, then that's fine. We think council wants to do a review, so rather than go out and start consulting the public and having council question why we were doing that, we thought we'd bring a report to council to seek direction for that. So that's what the report is seeking, direction on whether you want to leave it as status quo or whether you want to amend it. And if you do want to amend it, then staff are recommending that we consult members of the BIA, Chamber of Commerce, and specific business and building owners, as well as county departments, and report back on those recommendations. Happy to answer any of council's questions.
Questions on the report? Well, I will just say that I am in favor of looking at the CIP program. Certainly, we want to have a good effect upon our downtown, but we need programs that that will be made use of and that are effective in reaching our goals. So certainly, I think it warrants. It's been when was the last 2000?
It was adopted in 2017, I believe.
2017. Wow, time flies.
2018, sorry.
As time flies. So it's been a good 5 years, and I think that's more than fair to say, okay, let's go back and see what the public has to say to get those level investments that the community wants, and I'm sure council wants to see in our downtown core and throughout the town, because CIP does apply throughout the whole community, certain programs. So I'm certainly in favor of that. I'm seeing heads there. So, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Through the mayor to staff, the CIP would be based on the current central area design guidelines. And some of those guidelines are what I would consider maybe outdated. So the one that I think concerns me the most is that the guidelines right now promote only 3 stories, even though the zoning would permit 6. So through the consultation process, would staff also be considering feedback on those guidelines, or was that a separate process?
Certainly, we can review the central area design guidelines. I would note that those are guidelines only, and that the zoning bylaw would obviously take precedent. So I believe it's up to 6 stories that is permitted in the zoning bylaw. So that would certainly take precedence. These are guidelines, but that's something that if council wants us to undertake a review of the central area design guidelines, we can certainly take a look at that as well.
Further, Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, please.
Well, not to reiterate, but I think that it's time. I mean, it's been since 2017, so I'm happy that you brought it back before us, Curtis, and you gave us an outline of where we're at. I think it's good to refresh our memories of that, but I think it's time to go back out to the chamber and to BIA and ask the people, what it is that might possibly help them further. This was at the time, right, at 2017, of what helped them at the time. So, and it might be still very relevant. I mean, we've had a lot going on in our downtown area lately with some improvements, which is great to see. I applaud all those owners that are doing that. And so let's do that. And I know it's more work, but that's the way it goes, right? So let's see what we can do and see what they all have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, have you heard enough discussion to make a motion?
Yes, I have. Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hallerou, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report ED-15-23 regarding the financial incentives of the town's community improvement plan as information. And further, that Council directs staff to receive feedback from BIA members, Chamber of Commerce members, specific business building owners, and county departments, and report back recommendations at a subsequent meeting.
Discussion. Yeah, I'll just reiterate. I think everybody wants to see our downtown in a healthy and vibrant place. Certainly, there's always room for investment, and the more we can try to incentivize that to happen in a way we want to see it happen, I think is a positive. And so a refresh. Look at what's working and hear from those people of what could work better, I think is always a good thing. And I think our community members will appreciate that. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now move on to assumption of Clover Ridge Subdivision Phase 2, and that is Matt, please.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Mayor Petrie and Council. My first report this evening is a cleanup report noting the lands in the report were understood to have been assumed by the town. However, this was not formally completed in 2012, and securities are still being held from the developer for these lands. So by this cleanup report and bylaw, the site can simply be formally assumed as that has been in practice already. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions of the report? Seeing none, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hallerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report OP-014-23 as information, and that the Council assumes the subdivision known as Clover Ridge Phase 2 effective September the 11th, 2023, and that Council directs staff to notify all parties involved with the subdivision agreement of this assumption.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we'll return to Matt with the Oxford County Transportation Master Plan review, please.
Yes, through you, Mayor Petrie. This report is a high-level review of the recently completed Transportation Master Plan led by Oxford County as it pertains strictly to the impact to the town. So with this staff report, I've included rationale of the study and the outline of some of the traffic analysis that have been used in determining the outcomes of the report. So at a locally impacted level, the report desires, the staff recommendations relate to consideration of emergency detour routes and road rationalization within the town, which is essentially an analysis of what roads are appropriate as town roads and those that are appropriate to be arterial county roads. So the basis of those recommendations are the lacking of an east-west road, arterial road continuity through the town and the natural improvement of emergency detouring from the 401. So these are shortfalls that operations sees as opportunities available from the master planning process. And if desired, council can include those requests as part of the current open review period of the master plan. So this is a large report. I'd happy to leave things there and try to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from council on the report? Seeing none, then I'll call on Councillor Hallerue, please, for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Through moved by myself, Councillor Hallerue, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report 0P-015-23 as information, and that Town of Ingersoll Council requests that Oxford County Council include for a road rationalization study to be recommended in the Oxford County 2024 to 2046 Transportation Master Plan, and that such road rationalization study be suggested for undertaking in the 2024 to 2028 period, and include long-term planning for alternative emergency detour routing specific to the road network within the town of Ingersoll, consistent with final adoption of the Southwest Ingersoll Secondary Plan.
Discussion. I want to thank staff for the report. It's certainly, I think it highlighted some issues that are very important to both Ingersoll and the county's program. And this is the type of consultation that I was hoping for coming from the process and going forward. I think that it's very important that Ingersoll participate when our partners at the county are having these type of processes go through for these bigger items. Certainly, I do feel there was a little bit of a lack of communication from the county and active cooperation or collaboration that way to get our input. So I did ask for extension for the program to be put out for 75 days to allow for that. And I thank council for granting direction to staff to participate. Like I said, it's very important for us to have that two-way communication so we get the best outcome. We all have different jurisdictions, county and the local municipality, but roads is one of those things where our residents can't tell the difference. When you travel on one road or another, you really don't care whether it's the province, the county, or the town of Ingersoll that owns it. But really, from a town perspective, it is important that regional traffic travel on regional roads and is not impacting our local roads, which our local ratepayers have to pay for. And the same with emergency detours. I think we all know that when there's a closure on the 401, our downtown gets backed up extremely quickly. And so we really need to have another look at that to make sure that traffic is going where it needs to go and not impacting our community in a negative way. So very much appreciative of the work that was put into this, and I will certainly make sure that that message is delivered at the county level as well. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And moving right along, I'll return to Matt for the next report, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Petrie. Again, similar to the last report, this staff report speaks to the recent water and wastewater master plan undertaken by the county. So in staff's opinion, this master plan adequately addresses the development of design criteria for system expansions and management of existing assets based on the mentioned combination of social, cultural, environmental, and economic solutions, and the projections of town water and wastewater use consistent with the official plan, and no further concerns of the study. The recommendations provided in the report relate to consideration of the town nearing the completion of the secondary planning process, because it's the growth needs that are covered by the report's opportunity statement, but growth desire is above regional master planning. So by the town obtaining some of the data breakdown of the water and wastewater design criteria, we can gain an understanding of servicing marketability of our secondary lands and consideration of all the alternative servicing pressures. So again, a large report. Happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions of the report? Councillor Hallerou and then Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. So in reality, this is already something that we've already been doing, correct? We're just keeping the status quo and doing the 5-year review every 5 years?
Through you, Mayor Petrie, yes, these master plans get reviewed periodically, and the projections get updated to make sure that the growth and the assets are being expanded upon appropriately, consistent with the other plans that are being developed.
So we're actually just keeping it, we're not doing nothing, we're just keeping it because we already had a system that worked, correct? Or am I misunderstanding something?
Right, so yeah, our current, it's management of the current system, so it's not an asset management plan, but more of a master plan that reviews the existing assets and makes recommendations to increase their life cycles or optimize the use of the assets or expand them based on the growth needs. So it's an all-encompassing rather than just a singular report. It's maintaining our system and growing the system.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I'm not sure where this answer will come from. I do know that we definitely have a reasonable system here in Ingersoll. I do know that a lot of our residents complain about the taste of the water, the smell of the water, and I understand that's because we draw from many different wells in our town, and there is either a sulfur or an iron overabundance. And I did see in here that there's going to be an undertaking to try and get better water for us here in Ingersoll. What's the plan behind that? Is it just going to be continuing tapping wells and trying to see where the better water is? And then that's going to, if that's the case, then what kind of increases are we going to see coming into our costs for water and sewer? Because I know us in Ingersoll, and a lot of people complain about the cost of the water and sewer here in Ingersoll, that we are considerably higher than other municipalities in Oxford County. How are we going to try to mitigate that, increases where our water costs are going to skyrocket where other municipalities aren't?
I can probably speak to that from the county level. The county drinking water system is all about continuous improvement. So you never want to say status quo. They're always trying to improve the quality, and part of that is the it's safe drinking water, but the actual enjoyment of it, I guess, from the tap. So these are all things that are done through the budget process at the county. And of course, it could have, we are one drinking water system for Ingersoll, and residents do pay for that. So there could be cost into that, but as we grow, those costs will be spread out more between more users. And the better asset management we do also helps lower the cost. So those are things that will help address those. The other thing is it may not be, it may be incremental improvements. So as they bring in new systems, they will try to add different items that may do a better job. So it just may not happen overnight. The worst thing about you want to do to a water system, I understand, is change something rapidly, because once you get it set up, you want it to continuously operate in a certain way, and then monitor that, and then make calculated improvements to it so it does have a net benefit. So it's very rare that they'll make a major change if everything is operating properly, because in a safe way, because you certainly don't want to cause something that could cause an unsafe condition. Does that kind of?
Yeah, that does kind of answer the question. But again, it kind of boils down to the scenario that in comparison, say, to Woodstock, we're literally double the cost of our wastewater system. And I understand that, yeah, we pay into, if you want to call it, our pool of money for our system. So whatever costs are incurred for Ingersoll, we're paying for those improvements. But again, it runs into a scenario where when we're double Woodstock, it just doesn't make sense.
Mr. Grave does his hand up, but I will go to him. I will say that we've had a number of improvements in our wastewater facility that have led to that increase. Woodstock has not done that yet. So they are scheduled, there is scheduled in the capital forecast, they will have to make upgrades, and so that will increase their water water costs and wastewater costs as well. So it's all about the different drinking water system. We were by no far the most expensive. There's multiple different drinking water systems across the county, and so some of them are much higher rate depending on the amount of users and the type of system that they're using for treatment. Ingersoll's lucky we're on the Thames River, so we're able to have a fairly effective, cost-effective system for wastewater treatment, and of course our well water, like everybody else in the county, is very similar. But it's if you're up in Blandford Blenheim, there's less options. Our neighbors to the south in southwest Oxford, they have a very expensive system, so their costs are much higher. So it comes down to economy of scale as well. Woodstock does have a lot more users, but there's certainly things that will ebb and flow as time goes on. Mr. Graves, would you like to comment on that as well?
Yes, Your Worship, though you've stole my thunder quite substantially there, that was pretty close to what I was going to say. Really, the amount that we pay currently and it being higher than the others is more about timing, because we've upgraded some of our systems before some of the others. Woodstock and Tillsonburg is due to do that shortly, so their fees will likely go up as well. And when they do those kinds of upgrades at the county, they're often building in capacity. And I know for a fact that there are a number of municipalities across Oxford County that have a number of capacity issues. We do not have those capacity issues, and because we do not have those capacity issues, we've been able to add pretty large industrial over the last little while that has benefited us. So we're quite thankful that we don't have those capacity issues. So watch for their rates to go up higher and them to build in more capacity as they upgrade those systems, because the county tends not to upgrade all the systems all at once.
Yeah, and I will add to that. Obviously, we've heard at county level with the asset management plan, and what we're seeing in this plan is that Easor Tavistock will have to add double the capacity for sewage, a new line coming down to the Woodstock facility. Tillsonburg and Norwich have specific issues around water storage. Tillsonburg was on a water use restriction for most of the summertime, just because of the type of wells that they used there weren't now able to meet the capacity. So there is some issues that way. We do have a lovely painted, new refurbished water tower, which will again add to the rates, but that's going to increase that lifespan of that facility for probably 20-plus years, opposed to over $10 million for a new one. It was $3 million. So again, yeah, I agree with our CAO that timing is the issue, but we are in a lot better shape now because those investments were made. So residents will be able to enjoy stable water rates as opposed to our neighbors, which we'll see changes. Councillor Hallerud.
The other question I was thinking of is, this recommendation is saying we should get some data from county. Have we not always had access to the quality of water data for Ingersoll? Because I know we've always had that back and forth argument. People say it's safe, it's not safe. I think there should be clarity, and for some people that are looking for more data, I wonder if this is readily accessible or...
So that data is accessible through the county drinking water reports. I believe the data that staff is looking for is the more, and they can expand on this, the data that tells how the system is functioning as far as capacity limits and what is available, so they can make a more determined use of that to predict the future. Again, as Matt had mentioned, that this is more about lifespan and maintaining the system, and where staff would like to know about what's possible so we can make economic development decisions as far as what is available, what's the scale of what we could put in. If we do this, will affect that. Is that fair to say? Thank you. This is another good reason why we need to have this input and have the knowledge from the Ingersoll doesn't have a drinking water system or wastewater system. It is the county, but it's important to our residents to know they don't care. They want to turn on the tap and they want to flush their toilet, and really it's about government providing service. But it is important for us to have input into this and to have the knowledge of it so we can make those decisions that we are in control of, such as economic development and our future for expansion and for our residents. So, any further questions? Comments, discussion? See none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Oh, well, would you please read the resolution, please? I remember the last one.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report OP-017-23 as information, and that the Town of Ingersoll Council requests that Oxford County Council provide complete included data used and results thereof for the recommended drinking water system design criteria established for the wastewater master plan, and that the Town of Ingersoll Council requests that Oxford County Council provide completed included data used and results thereof of the recommended wastewater treatment system design criteria for the wastewater master plan.
Now discussion. Next time, just scream point of order. That's your chance. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried this time for sure. So I think we'll take a quick break. We do have a public meeting coming up at 7 p.m. So we'll take a quick 8-minute break and then we'll continue with that. Thank you. Can I just have a quick motion for that? Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, Councillor Deputy Mayor Wilson, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will call the meeting back to order, and I will call on Councillor Hughes. You have a resolution to adjourn the regular meeting for this time.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hallerud, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll adjourn the September 11th, 2023 regular council meeting at 7 p.m. and go into Committee of Adjustment meeting to consider the following minor variance applications. 1, A-03-23-6, A-03-23, 67 Charles Street East, applicant Gabe Ferrone, owner Jeffrey Chorlopi, sorry if I mispronounced your names. 2, A-04-23, 4 Elm Street, Astro Homes.
Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I now declare the Committee of Adjustment meeting to be open. The Committee of Adjustment is authorized to consider applications for minor variances from the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw under Section 45 of the Planning Act. This meeting is being constituted as a public meeting under Section 45(6) of the Act for the purpose of receiving public input on the requested minor variances, which will be considered this evening by the planner and the Committee of Adjustment before a decision on the application is made at a future meeting of the committee. We ask anyone in attendance at this meeting who wishes to receive the decision of the committee on the application being considered to sign the attendance record on the table outside of council chambers. Anyone attending virtually, submit a written request to Town Clerk daniel.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Ontario Land Tribunal, the OLT, has the powers to dismiss any appeal under subsection 1745 of the Planning Act if an appellant has not provided the Committee of Adjustment with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submission before a decision has been rendered by the committee. Our first application, A-03-23. Does any member of the Committee of Adjustment have a conflict of interest on this application being heard this evening? Seeing none. I now request Planner Heather St. Clair to provide an overview of the application and an explanation of the requested minor variance, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, committee. So the first application on tonight's agenda is an application for minor variance, which has been submitted to facilitate an addition to the rear of an existing single detached dwelling, as well as a rear yard deck. The subject lands are located on the north side of Charles Street East, lying west of Mutual Street, and are approximately 382 square meters in size, and do contain an existing single detached dwelling that was constructed in approximately 1900. Subject lands also contain a small garden shed at the rear of the property and 1 parking space with access onto Charles Street East, and the rear portion of the subject lands, which slope significantly to the north, are regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. So it's proposed that a 6.6 square meter or 71 square foot addition will be added to the rear of the existing dwelling, together with the proposed deck. And the applicant will require a reduction to the interior side yard setback on the west side of the property, as they are proposing to place the addition somewhat flush to the existing dwelling. The subject lands are designated as Central Business District in the official plan, and this designation is reflective of the historical pedestrian shopping area along Thames Street, together with the lands along Charles Street, which have been included in this designation to accommodate any potential growth through redevelopment or conversion of use in order to maintain this main pedestrian shopping environment. The Central Business designation is also intended to be the most intensive, functionally diverse business, cultural, and administrative center for the town. So as such, it does permit the full range of commercial, office, administrative, cultural, entertainment, recreational, and institutional uses. It does permit multiple residential development, but does not include single detached dwellings. So that being said, the subject lands do contain that existing single detached dwelling, which is considered to be legal nonconforming for the policies of the Central Business District designation. So non-conforming uses are those uses that were legally established that do not conform to the current land use policies or zoning bylaw provisions. And the subject lands are zoned as central commercial zone in the town zoning bylaw, which permits a limited range of multiple unit residential dwellings and a wide range of commercial uses.
So Section 5.16 of the zoning bylaw does permit the committee to consider extensions or additions to existing nonconforming uses, provided that the building or use established at the date of passing of the zoning bylaw has continued to be devoted to that same use since that time. And where a single detached dwelling is considered to be a nonconforming use, the R1 zone provisions are generally applied. So the R1 zone provisions do require that a single detached dwelling meet a minimum interior setback of 3 meters on one side and 1.2 meters on the other. So the application was circulated to the public in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and one letter was received from the public indicating concerns with respect to the existing door on the west side of the building, as well as the location of the proposed footings and the impact any future construction may have to an existing retaining wall that's located to the west of the subject lands. So in response to these concerns, the chief building official did indicate that the applicant has not submitted a building permit at this time. However, a permit would be required prior to any construction being undertaken on the site, and all development would be required to be in accordance with the Ontario Building Code. Additional comments from public agencies and a recommendation from planning staff on the proposal will be presented to the committee at a subsequent meeting, but if you have any questions, I'm available to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments or anything to say concerning the application? I am not seeing the applicant. They're not on Zoom? No, they're not electronically. Okay. I will now open this meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the one opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and the Committee of Adjustment before the report and recommendation of the requested minor variance is brought forward at a subsequent meeting. Any person attending who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition of the application may do so now. If attending in person, please approach the lectern and state your name and address for the public record. Any person attending virtually who has registered, do we have any registered? We do not have any registered, so I will skip that part. Would anybody like to speak to the application? Second call. Seeing none. Members of the Committee of Adjustment now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Is there any questions from council? I have a question regarding the regulatory limit. I do see that opposed on a map. Is any of the proposed development within the regulatory limit that would require a Section 28 permit?
The Upper Thames River Conservation Authority did review the proposal. They worked with the applicant in advance of finalizing the application. And I believe, I may confirm with the chief building official that they were able to satisfy their requirements without the need for the Section 28 requirement.
To be honest, I'm not 100% on that. I know Upper Thames was consulted, and I believe it was favorable, but I don't have the results here with me.
Okay, no, fair enough. Just wanted to, Councillor,
We will be looking at that again in terms of the building permit application. We will require Upper Thames clearance one way or the other.
excellent. Thank you. Member Use, please.
For clarification, what's a Section 28 permit?
Any further questions? Seeing none, if there are no further comments or questions, then this public meeting for this application is concluded. The application will now be scheduled to come before the Committee of Adjustment, a subsequent meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered and decision will be made. I will now ask that, Member Halleru, do you have a resolution to receive the
Yes,
planner's
sir.
report, please?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Chair. So moved by myself, Councillor Halleru, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment receive Planners Report number CP 2023-251 as information.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now continue with our second application, A-04-23. Does any member of the Committee of Adjustment have a conflict of interest on this application being heard this evening? Seeing none. The application to be heard concerns A-04-23 Astro Homes, Form Elm Street. Has the Secretary Committee received any additional correspondence on the application that is not noted on the agenda?
I have not.
Thank you. I will now request the planner, Heather Sinclair, to provide an overview of the application and explanation of the requested minor variance, please.
Thank you. So this application for minor variance has been requested to permit a reduction to the minimum exterior side yard width setback from 6 meters or 19.7 feet to 4 meters or 13.1 feet. And this relief has been requested to permit a porch on a proposed single detached dwelling. The subject lands are located on the northwest corner of Elm Street and Royland Crescent, and once severed will be approximately 750 square meters or 8,093 square feet in area. The subject lands currently contain a portion of an existing single detached dwelling, which will be demolished. The subject property was granted conditional consent in February of 2022 by the Land Division Committee to create 2 additional parcels from the subject lands. And it's noted that the severance has not yet been completed at this time, and it is intended that the requested variance would be applicable to only the lot located on the corner. The subject property is designated as low-density residential in the official plan, which is intended for a variety of low-density housing types, such as single-detached dwellings. And the property is zoned as residential type 1 in the town zoning bylaw, which permits low-density development, such as a single detached dwelling. The R1 zone does establish a front and exterior side yard setback of 6 meters, and this provision is intended to ensure that there are consistent sight lines maintained on the streetscape, and to provide for sufficient area for landscaping, while also minimizing the physical impact that the road has on private development, and allowing for sufficient space for road maintenance. So as stated, in this case, the applicant has requested a reduction to the exterior side yard setback, which would be located along Royland Crescent, and is requesting a setback of 4 meters to the property line. And as stated, it's for a proposed porch for a single detached dwelling. So we did receive 3 letters as part of our public circulation. These letters of concern, as summarized, include no rationale being provided for the request, and no alternative designs were considered. The marketing material provided for the subject lands and real estate ads indicate the potential for future in-law suites, which may result in the proposed dwelling becoming a duplex and might result in future parking issues. The marketing material does not correspond with the information that was provided in the application. The letters also stated that on-street parking is an issue in the area, and the approval of the proposal may add to the congestion and create future safety issues, especially at the intersection. Concerns were also stated with respect to out-of-town builders may cause issues on the local development market, and concerns with respect to the visibility being reduced at the intersection of Elm Street and Royland Crescent. And it was noted in the letters that there have been several vehicle accidents and people speeding in the immediate area, and there was a request for a 4-way stop at the intersection of Royland and Elm as well. One letter did have signatures from 5 residents in the area stating concerns that the previous severance has not yet been completed, and approval of the minor variance is premature until that has been completed. So with respect to the concerns regarding road safety, it is noted that the applicant's site sketch does show a compliant site triangle, which is a 9 meter by 9 meter area that cannot be developed at the intersection. And we did receive comments from the town engineer indicating that Royland Crescent is a stop-controlled intersection east to west. And generally, the sight lines relate to the minimum stopping sight distance, so the risks at that intersection would be minimal. No additional comments were received from the public agencies circulated, and a subsequent report with a planning recommendation will be provided at a future meeting. If you have any questions, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments or anything to say concerning the application? Yep. If you'd like to say something, please come up to the lectern.
Sorry, where?
Just to the lectern.
My name is Anusin. My father is the one who's in charge. He unfortunately had like a business trip, so he wasn't able to be here. I just want to speak a little bit about the visibility and stuff like that. So I actually have a couple of pictures here of how the porch is going to be. And who do I pass it to? Or do I just... It just speaks to about the porch. So basically the porch is going to be open and see-through. So it's not going to obstruct the visibility. It's not going to be closed off. And also one of the reasons we are trying to keep it up as much as possible because there's a bunch of trees in the back of the lot. And my father actually spoke to the neighbor behind our lot. And the trees actually help keep privacy for her. So we're trying the maximum possible for us to keep that present there. And yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. If you'd like to provide those to the clerk, the photos so they can be included, that'd be great. Excellent, thank you. I will now open this meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the one opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and committee of adjustment before the report and recommendation on the requested minor variance is brought forward at a subsequent meeting. Any person attending who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition to the application may do so now. If attending in person, please approach the lectern and state your name and address for the public record. Any person attending virtually who has registered to provide comments? Does we have any registered?
None registered online.
Okay, thank you very much. Therefore, I will call on anybody who would like to make comment to come up to the lectern, please. Please feel free to come up. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. My name's Linda Deneen. I live at 14 Royland Crescent in Ingersoll. The one thing that I would like to point out is that the current sketch that has been submitted by the owner not only has the porch on the minor variance land, but also the whole, according to that map, west side of the building. So if the Committee of Adjustment does choose to grant the minor variance based on the severance going through and that being on Lot 1, I would request that the minor variance also include that it is just relating to a porch as indicated. And it was great to see that picture. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Are there further comments from the public who would like to make comment? Yep, please come forward.
My name is Blaine Wilson. I live on 1 Cedar Street now, corner. And I heard a four-way stop mentioned. We have enough traffic going up and down there pretty quick without stopping and starting. I don't think that would be an answer to this problem. That's the only comment I have. It's my wife, Brenda.
and I also live at 1 Cedar Street, Ingersoll. I would like to know what assurances that we have that this in the future will not become a closed-in porch and subsequently part of the structure, the permanent structure of the home.
Staff may not be able to answer that, but they can certainly incorporate that answer into the report, unless they would like to answer now.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there's a few options available to the committee. They can choose, so if they are supportive of the proposal, you can choose to apply conditions to minor variance approvals. But it is also noted that any future enclosures of that porch would also be subject to a building permit. That's not so if it depends on the wording of the decision of the committee, if you wanted to apply that condition, it could be incorporated. In which case the building department may not be in a position to issue a future permit to enclose that if it wasn't in compliance with the minor variance decision.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any further comments or questions? Last call. This is a great opportunity to have we have with our process to make sure everybody has their say, and then we have all the information to make a good decision. So thanks to you for those who have brought forward information. It's appreciated. I will now ask that members of the committee now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer comments at this time. Are there questions? Councillor, or Member Use, please.
Thank you, Chair. There's been comments about speeding and increased traffic there. Have there been any, have there been any complaints or comments to the OPP? And B, would we be able to ask the OPP for any information regarding that intersection or those streets?
Heather, would you care to answer that or have the ability to provide that information?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I cannot comment on any enforcement action, but I believe the town engineer was able to provide us with some preliminary comments on vehicle counts, I believe, and average speed rates, and I don't know if you have that information available, but...
Just before, Mr. Graves, would you like to?
Yes, I was just going to say, other than the data that we currently have, further counts could be done in the area if necessary, but it's not really an OPP. I doubt that there's been many accidents in that area, but we could try to see if there's any data on that.
Okay. Would you like to add to that, Mr. Sweetland?
Yes, in our review of this consideration of speeding on Elm Street, we did pull our most recent the traffic data. We put up the counters within the last couple of years, and it's currently we use the 85th percentile speed when assessing the continuity of vehicles on the streets, and the average speed here was, or the 85th percentile speed was 49 kilometers per hour through this area, which is, it's a short distance, but it's within the speed limit for the area.
Can you repeat that? I could barely hear you, Matt. I'm so sorry. I apologize, but you're so low. I'm really trying to listen.
Yeah, so for this area, the 85th percentile speed, which is the data that's used, showed 49 kilometers per hour. That's the speed at which 85% of vehicles would be traveling through this area, which is within the speed limit. It is a short distance, so that suggests quickly approaching that speed, but it's within the threshold that wouldn't require further consideration, or it wouldn't be considered speeding.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Halleru, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up to that, so where were the counters placed? Was that on Cedar Street, or was that on Royland, or on Elm?
That was on Elm Street.
It was on Elm Street. Thank you.
Member Halleru, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wondering, what is the criteria for us to be able to establish if a cross road needs stop signs?
Mr. Sweden?
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. So a stop sign isn't considered a speed control device. By improperly using a stop sign often leads to increased infractions where you're stopped too frequently, then you speed up too frequently to make up your time. So a stop sign is a intersection control when looking at how two cross streets interact, for how many vehicles are queued on the lower street, or if queuing of vehicles is allowable on the higher volume street, then you may consider how the roads interact via local roads, arterial roads, how those, when you design an intersection, that's how it works, but not towards speeding.
Just a follow-up question, because we're getting a lot of complaints. I've received one or two other complaints for different intersections. What criteria do we use, though, to determine where we would put stop signs?
Yes, so there's a wide range of criteria that can be used, just from desire to put one in, or look at the history of that intersection. They would be looked at individually on what there's many criteria that are looked at for what type of intersection control could be used there. Stop sign, street light, yield sign, roundabout. Everyone is all different criteria that ends up being used. You look at the traffic history in that area on whether that would be recommended.
Does it pertain to the application?
Okay, yeah.
Yep. Any further questions from members? Member Van Kooten-Bossence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to follow up on that one then. How long has it been since we looked at this area for those crossroads? If you even know that, it may be something that you could get back to us with. I'm just curious as to, we've done the counts. What do we do with that information? And how long before we do those counts do we assess, or do you assess it already and say, no, we're within that criteria then of it staying status quo in that respect?
So yes, our team deploys traffic counters throughout the town weekly, even to try to find these anomalies. So if there's an outlier, we can make a decision on if an action needs to happen. I'm not aware of this intersection being looked at for any change criteria.
Any further questions of the committee? Member Hughes, please.
Thank you. Back to the car count. What was the car count for or vehicle count for this street? I either didn't hear it or you didn't say it. I can't remember which it is, but.
Yes, sorry, I don't have the vehicle count. I have the 85th percentile speed, which was 49 kilometers per hour. So no, I don't have the count in front of me here.
Further questions? Seeing none, if there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting for this application is concluded. The application will now be scheduled to come before the Committee of Adjustment at a subsequent meeting, during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered and a decision will be made. As a reminder, if any member of the audience wishes to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Ingersoll in respect of the minor variance, they may either sign the attendance sheet that is located in the foyer outside council chambers, or submit a written request to Secretary of the Committee of Adjustment Danielle Richard at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Secretary must provide notice of the Committee of Adjustment's decisions to all those requests a copy within 10 days after the making of the decision. Those entitled to appeal the decision to the OLT must do so by filing with the Secretary within 20 days of the notice of decision. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the decision and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by the required fee. If there are no further comments or questions, seeing none, then I call for the adjournment of this public meeting session. And I believe before I do that, I will call on Member Van Kooten-Bossence for the Committee of Adjustment Planners Report for 252, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Member Wilson, that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment receive Planners Report number CP 2023-252 as information.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I will now call Member Hudson, please, to close the meeting of application A3-23, please. Oh, yes, number 15 on the list.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Member Van Kooten-Bossence, that the Committee of Adjustment public meeting for application A-03-23 be hereby closed.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I will call upon Member Wilson, please, for A-0423, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Hughes, that the Committee of Adjustment public meeting for application A-04-23 be hereby closed.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, and Van Kooten-Bossence, can I please have the regular meeting come back to order, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Member Wilson, that the September 11th, 2023 regular meeting of council come back into order.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so we are now back in our regular council meeting for September, and we will continue on with our special reports, going down to number 6. Mr. Sweetland, please, again.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Petrie, this is an information report for council. As staff were recently advised by CN Rail that they will be rehabilitating the 10th Street crossing this fall. So it is in poor condition, which has been realized by CN. So staff set up a call to gain understanding of what work's happening in a short time and build on coordination efforts with the rail companies. So essentially, CN's bound by their design guidelines for rail construction, and the in-place infrastructure at this crossing allows for another timber crossing to be constructed and approved upon from the last, based on the construction methods and lessons learned from past rehab efforts. So this increased coordination effort will now ensure that the town's able to participate in CN's inspection programs going forward, and will know further in advance of work and be provided ability to budget appropriately for above and beyond improvements if so desired by the corporation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of the report? Councillor Hughes.
So just to confirm, we're not going to have any input into this, but we'll be looking forward to having input into the next ones.
Yeah, that's correct.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I believe we have a resolution, and that will be Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report OP-018-23 as information.
Discussion. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence.
So I thank staff for reaching out and really pushing this issue. It sucks that we don't have, and I don't mean to make that word, but it really does, that we don't have some kind of degree of input into this one. So that means it'll probably degrade pretty quickly again, and we'll be back at this point, but next time we will have more of an input, which I'm so thankful. This railroad crossing is awful. It is not good for our vehicles to be going over it. I watch everybody swerve out to the right, which can't be good for traffic in that respect, but I thank you for reaching out, and I'm glad that we're going to have a say going forward. And so please, residents, be patient, and when it starts to degrade again, we all need to, I actually posted up to social media, please call the number and call CN, because it's the only way we seem to get anything going. So, but I'm really glad that we're going to have a say at the next one. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can, it's certainly always a frustrating thing. It seems like there's two stages to the tracks, just repaired and then needs repaired. And certainly CN is in control. They have the right of way, and certainly we need to respect that, but it's certainly frustrating. So I am very glad that staff, and I commend CN for coming to the table and being agreeable to having input from our staff and being more open dialogue. It's always been an issue of that. We seem to have a pretty good representative from CN right now who's willing to discuss items. So staff can prepare more in the future, and we can have a better result. Certainly, it goes back to our other report about having good regional roads and making sure that local traffic is on local roads, which Thames Street is. One time it was a provincial highway, and then it was a county road, and now it's been downloaded, but unfortunately still a lot of regional traffic, including big trucks, continue to use those tracks, which exacerbates the rate at which they deteriorate. So anything we can do to try to get that traffic moved to a better route will help the situation as well. But certainly looking forward to, everybody in town will certainly looking forward to getting that done. So thank you again. Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will go down to number 7, which is adoption of new procurement goods and services policy and bylaw. And I will turn that over to our treasurer, Irina, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for you. Here we have Mandy Clark tonight, our newly appointed deputy treasurer. So she drafted the report. She played a crucial role in updating the policy, and I would really like her to present the report before council. Mandy and I will be happy to address any questions and concerns you may have, but she will be presenting the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina, and good evening, Council. So this report serves to provide Council with an overview of the proposed changes to be added or updated to the current procurement of goods and services policy and bylaw. A review and revision of the town's current policy has not been made since 2015. It is in the current policy that the review of the policy shall occur every 5 years. So staff has taken the opportunity to review the procurement policy from several other municipalities of similar size, and this report provides council with an overview of the recommended changes in regards to procurement thresholds, approval authority for over-budget bids, conflict of interest addition, and updates to insurance requirements and pre-qualification of vendors. In staff's review of other municipalities, it was recognized that the town has one of the lowest thresholds. Since the last review of our procurement policy in 2015, the consumer price index has increased 2.98% per year. Increasing thresholds, as outlined in the report, is intended to improve the value attained through the procurement process and improve service delivery. During the review of the town's current policy, Section 24.0 outlines the criteria for the process for reducing cost of over-budget bid submissions, however, does not include a process for approval of over-budget bids. The ongoing increase of the CPI, and as outlined in the report, staff would recommend including a process for approval of over-budget bids and that the approval threshold be 10%, which aligns with other municipalities of similar size. Staff has recommended, as outlined in the report, a conflict of interest addition. This is to clearly define and provide clarity while ensuring appropriate controls in relation to elected officials and employees who wish to participate in the procurement process. Staff have reviewed the industry best practices in relation to insurance requirements. As outlined in the report, staff recommend the increase of our insurance requirements from our vendors from $2 million to $5 million. Our basis of this recommendation is for our vendors to provide adequate coverage and align with industry best practices. In staff's review of other municipalities' procurement policies, it was recognized that the municipalities include a predetermined criteria for assessing vendor selection. Many of the pre-qualification of vendors are already considered during the procurement process of the town, and staff would recommend that the criteria be included in our policy. Staff would further recommend the addition of an exclusion section where certain purchases are not subject to the procurement policy. Many of the exclusions noted in the report are already part of the budget process and have been previously approved through this process. Including exclusions in our policy clearly defines for staff purchases which are not subject to this policy. Thank you very much, and we're open to any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions of the report, please? I have a question around the elected officials and employees portion of it with the perceived or actual conflicts of interest. Traditionally, employees have not been allowed to partake in the RFP process. Is this something that's, was this brought forward as is the case in other municipalities?
I can answer this question. So after we reviewed several policies from other municipalities, similar size and larger communities, so it was clear that staff was prohibited from participating in and elected officials as well, from participating in the procurement process, from participating in tendering or RFP processes. So given that the town of Ingersoll is a smaller community and we would like to provide this opportunity to staff and elected officials to participate in our procurement process, we've included this section that basically speaks to elected officials and employees seeking council's approval prior to submitting the bids. However, as I understand, and we also reference the conflict of interest, town's conflict of interest, and Freedom of Information Act. So it should be all in accordance to those two documents, in our understanding. Staff.
Okay. Further questions of the report? Okay. Would you like to make a motion, Deputy Mayor Wilson? We'll have discussion.
For discussion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receives staff report T-019-23 as information, and that Council approve the adoption of and the amendment of the public tendering and procurement policy through a bylaw as identified in report T-019-23, and further that Council approve the formal adoption of said procurement threshold increases and policy changes via bylaw.
Discussion. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
I suppose just for further clarity, if Council wishes to further discuss whether staff should or should not be prohibited through the conflict of interest, I'm open to amending, but I suppose just opening up for discussion based on staff's response.
Yeah, and I have some, I appreciate that. One, the whole point of having a procurement policy or an RFP tender process, have a fair process where it has the same information. And that's where I have an issue with staff being able to participate, depending on their employment, as whether they would have access to information that would make the process not fair. And so that was why the reasons why staff were prohibited before in the procurement process was to make sure that the public was well aware of that it was a fair process, that no one was getting an unfair advantage. The other issue I have with the proposed one is around the elected officials part. My issue is that we are covered under the Code of Conduct and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. And so the point of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act is that, especially in a small town, people will have business opportunities and will be allowed to continue their business. And some of that is maybe with the town, but again, it is with a fair and open process. I believe that that's something that should be able to happen, again, if it's demonstrated in a fair and open process. What I don't agree with is that we should have approval from council for that to happen. I think it should be notified, a notification to council that a council member has put in a bid, and therefore they can declare a conflict of interest in the issue. I just wouldn't want to see council being an approval authority. I don't think that it would stand up in a court, personally, because the Conflict of Interest Act allows this to happen. That's the reason why it's there. And I would not want council to be dictating one way or the other in a policy of this. Either way. So I would move an amendment. I'd be open to an amendment to that an elected official obtain or inform council prior to the close of the bid, I guess, that they're submitting a bid, and that way the public knows that they have, council knows that they can declare an interest on the matter, and that if, again, now, some people might be saying, well, council may have information, like a staff employee may have information, and that is correct. But the moment they act upon that information that they shouldn't, that's a contravention of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, if they have information that's not available to the public. So therefore, it is creating a fair process where that can be dealt with. I wish I wouldn't want to have I wouldn't want to have employees placed in a position where people could be questioning their integrity. But I just can't think of a fair process where they would be able to, they don't fall under the Conflict of Interest Act. So it's a little bit different and hard to have that for the ability of them to have procurement, still participate in an open manner. Councillor Hallerow.
I think it's fair because just like I thought in the case of last council, everybody would be aware that I declared pecuniary interest because my company was bidding for something. I did definitely like the idea of getting that council approval from, I had called the clerk to determine if it was actually okay and if it was applicable in the situation that I was able to bid, and she clarified and that came to council. So I think what this is seeking is some form of transparency so that people will be aware that this person has gone through the process. So it definitely helped me feel comfortable to publicly declare and publicly come through. So I do think it's fair that if a staff or an elected official had some opportunities that they could actually clarify, and then if they were clear, council, I think having that seal of approval would help, make it more legit for the public. And I think we should leave it this way if you ask me.
Okay. Just to clarify, the reason why I would not want it for council to have an approval, because it doesn't mention anywhere in the Conflict of Interest Act that council has the approval to stop a council member from pursuing their business. I would hate to have a situation, I could foresee a situation possible of hypothetical council where you could have a split council and someone could be, it could be a political decision not to allow that person. If it's an approval, they have a yes or a no. I think it's important that people are allowed to pursue their business in a fair way. But I think that's where it comes into not getting approval, but notifying council of the bid and the public of bid is fair. That allows the person to declare a pecuniary interest. There is no other way unless it's done at a meeting. So having that in there saying that they're notifying council that they're putting a bid allows them to have a pecuniary interest and then be covered under the Conflict of Interest Act. That's the only reason for that. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence.
And I hate to do this, but Mandy, I'm going to have a question for you, probably your Irina. When you were looking at other municipalities, how did they handle employees then in that respect? And if you said this already, I apologize that I've missed it, but you're bringing up a really good point, but I'm curious as to how do other municipalities take out the fact that employees then can't participate in an RFP process? Because if they are participating, how are they doing it then? Because I'd rather follow a best practice then and be able to allow that if that's the case.
I would say 99%. In majority policies we have reviewed, employees were prohibited from participating, same as the elected officials. So elected officials and employees are prohibited from participating in the tendering or RFP process.
My question of that is, I don't know if that's ever been challenged in court, that you can prohibit an elected official with the municipal conflict of interest act. I don't know if it's ever been tested, but I don't know if it would, because it doesn't talk to being able to do that in the municipal, any legislation that I've seen. But Councillor Hallery.
I think it's, when you take a look at big municipalities, large municipalities, you really can't say where someone has influence or where they don't. And I think that's why we'll find that in most municipalities that is the case, because no one knows where someone's influence lies. But in small towns where it's basically clear who's who, I think this proposal makes sense. It's kind of what I...
Seconder.
Sorry. Can you repeat that amendment, please?
Sorry. Just going to consult the clerk here for a second. So, yes, that's a very good point. There are members of boards and stuff. So to clarify, and I'll look for the seconder on this one, that staff be prohibited from the RFP and tenders, and that members as defined in the municipal conflict of interest notify council of a bid of participation prior to bid close. No, that's second. Are you, is that more clear?
Thank you.
Okay. Discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That amendment is carried. And then to vote on, to continue on to the, is there any further discussion on the amended motion? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And now we will, that concludes our special reports. And now we'll move on to special staff report zoning applications, number 1. And I'll turn that over to Heather Sinclair for the report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as council was presented at their public meeting in August, we have an application for zone change, which has been submitted to rezone the subject lands. Actually, if I could have the deputy clerk, is it possible to get the mapping back up, or if council doesn't feel it's necessary? Thank you. The application proposes to rezone the subject lands from residential type 3 zone to special residential type 3 zone to permit an increase to the maximum lot coverage allowance from 40% to 50% lot area in order to facilitate proposed street fronting townhouses. So specifically, this amendment has been requested to permit 20 proposed street fronting townhouses, which would be located on the east side of Walker Road, to be separately conveyed through the exemption to the port lot control process. So the subject lands do contain 6 existing townhouses that are currently under construction, and 13 additional townhouses are proposed, which would be accessed off of a private driveway, and the development itself has been granted site plan approval from the town. So planning staff are generally satisfied that the proposal will facilitate the creation of additional residential dwellings within the town that will aid in providing a mix and range of dwelling types to accommodate residential needs, and therefore it is consistent with the direction of the provincial policy statement. And further, staff are satisfied that the proposal will efficiently utilize existing and planned for municipal infrastructure and will provide for appropriate residential intensification in proximity to existing public service facilities. So it's the intent of the lot coverage provision essentially to ensure that sufficient pervious area is maintained on private property to allow for private amenity space, as well as to accommodate for appropriate stormwater runoff. The proposed development, as noted, has been subject to a detailed site review as part of the town's site plan approval process, which includes a detailed review of stormwater management, and both on the subject lands and as it functions together in the subdivision as a whole. So essentially, given that the stormwater review has been undertaken by the town and the town is satisfied with the proposal, planning staff are of the opinion that the request does maintain the intent of the lot coverage provisions in the zoning bylaw, and the approval of the applicant's request is not anticipated to negatively impact surrounding land uses. One letter was received from the public as part of the public circulation, which did outline concerns with respect to speed and traffic along David Street. And so to this end, staff do note that the proposed request to the increase in lot coverage will not increase the number of units that have already been approved for the subdivision, but instead will review the lot coverage calculation based on those 20 units rather than the entire site as a whole. So as such, planning staff are of the opinion that approval of the rezoning as submitted is not going to have any additional impact on the traffic or speed along David Street. So overall, staff are satisfied that the proposal can be supported from a planning perspective, and we have prepared a draft bylaw for council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions of the report? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So is this just for the street-facing buildings, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hughes. That's correct. So it's our understanding that the part lot control exemption application will apply only to the proposed lots outlined in red on plate 3 of the staff report, and the remainder of the development, which would be accessed by the private driveway, would either remain as rental units under one ownership or would be subject to a future application for condominium.
Thank you.
Further questions of the report? Seeing none. Councillor Hudson, I believe you have a motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll approve the zone change application submitted by 1879784 Ontario Inc. for lands described as part of Block 27, Plan 41M-307 in the Town of Ingersoll to rezone the subject lands from Residential Type 3 Zone R3 to Special Residential Type 3 Zone R3-32 to permit an increase to the maximum lot coverage allowance from 40 to 50% lot area.
Discussion. I'll just make the comment on this that I think this is a very good example of sometimes where we do have current lot coverage and we zone by that, but this has been looked at from a functional standpoint from the town's site plan control, and it's shown that 50% lot coverage can function. And so I will definitely be supporting this. I think it adds increased density and options to our housing stock, and certainly brings development to a parcel of land that was originally approved in 1991. So I think it's more than time to have something happen on there, and I appreciate moving forward to something that, to a type of development that is badly needed within our community. So it has my support this evening. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, and we will now move down to correspondence and resolution. UNESCO welcome letter, and that is Councillor Hughes, please.
Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Halleru, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received the welcome letter from the UNESCO Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities as information.
Discussion. Certainly was a welcome letter to receive. They were very quick in returning our correspondence, which was very nice, and it gives us a great opportunity for our DEI committee to reach out and gain some better understanding there. And we get permission to use some branding, which is always nice as well to promote the work that the committee is doing. Would either like the committee representatives like to comment? Yep, Councillor Halleru, please.
Well, it was definitely hard fought by the committee, and all the other members, to be honest, really pushed for this, and I'm just really happy that they see that we achieved this. It's a very diverse team, and it makes us all feel like the Deputy Mayor would say, we may have felt more aligned with receiving a toolkit from the coalition, so I think this is well received, and thank you for all the effort you put in to join us in doing this, Mayor.
Dear Mayor Wilson?
Through you to council. I think it was just a really proud moment for the committee, because it is, the DEI work is very complex, and it can be kind of difficult to get moving. So I know this really was an exciting outcome for the committee members to see this go forward. So it was really well received in the community as well. And this is, step one on some things to come.
Yep, Councillor Halleru.
Just so that the public is aware, we're basically joining the September 30th Indigenous Walk, and members of the committee would like to meet the public if they're there to ask questions and get more clarification on what this means to the community.
Very good, excellent, and we'll make sure that that's shared with the committee as well, and all those resources that are available to them. For discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And AHI Discovery Week update, Councillor Halleru, please.
Through you, Mayor, thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Halleru, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Ingersoll receive correspondence from the Alexandra Hospital Ingersoll Discovery Week Committee, thanking Council for their support as information.
Discussion. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence.
I want to thank the 4 students for coming out, and I'm hoping that they will see the wisdom of coming to a rural community. We are still very much in need of having more doctors come, and I'm so thankful that we continue to have a Discovery Week within our community. And so hopefully they see it as an opportunity to come to our community and be a part of it when they finally become doctors, because we do definitely need more doctors. So thank you to Alexandra Hospital for continuing to hold the Discovery Week and bring these students in from Western or wherever they're coming from. I think it was all Western students, so it was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And item 21, Big Brothers Big Sisters Month. Councillor Hudson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Oxford County regarding Turn the Town Teal for Big Brothers Big Sisters Month during September as information.
Thank you. Discussion. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
I looked into what Turn the Town Teal entails, and essentially if the town were to participate, Big Brothers Big Sisters would give the town a kit with some decorating materials, and staff would be able to decorate. The idea is to help them get to their goal of 50 new volunteers in the community. So I think my suggestion might be that it could be something fun for the Fusion Youth Center to participate in. The town does give Big Brothers Big Sisters, I think it was around $7,000 last year, so it's nice for us to also recognize the things that are happening in our community. So if staff felt like it was appropriate for Fusion to do so, I think it would be nice to participate.
Is staff good pursuing that without an amendment? I'm hearing yes. Perfect. So, Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence.
Well, and I'm just wondering, I know that they know that we have a sign. I mean, how else can we show teal? But I'm thinking those signs, could we be putting up an ad or encouraging Big Brothers and Big Sisters to putting up an ad saying that it's Big Brothers and Big Sisters Month and letting us be able to have that show the teal color up there and the whole bit. So I was trying to figure out how else we can show the teal without it costing a huge amount of money, but bringing awareness to Big Brothers and Big Sisters. They do a lot of great things with a lot of different kids. So I'm just wondering if when we're reaching out, if we can encourage them to do that as well. Would that be, yeah? Perfect, thank you.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And moving down to, we'll just wait for Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence. Kiwanis fee waiver request. Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the Kiwanis Club of Ingersoll as information, and that Council approve the request to waive the requested fees as identified in the correspondence and itemized in invoice number 16383, and further that Council approve the request to waive the $25 daily food vendor permit fee for the Ingersoll Masons and the Forward Church, $50 in total.
Discussion. Councillor Halleran.
I think what the Kiwanis does for this community is honestly an amazing contribution to community, to volunteerism, and I think because they work so closely with our own institutions, which is like the Choosey Museum, and even encouraging people to come camp here, I think this is something we can consider because they are helping. They've become a fabric of the community. I'm sure most people don't even see them as a private or nonprofit. It's almost like they're part of the fabric. So I definitely support this waiver for the Kiwanis.
Yeah, and I would second that. I think that they did a great job at the event, and really they've taken over what was Harvest Fest for the town. So I think, and all our service clubs, they do so much for our community that this is a small investment, really, when you think about it, for what was provided for our residents that day. So certainly in support of that. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, you can return. The secret knob. Sorry. No problem. And we will go down to item 23, MMAH Building Faster Fund, please. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding the Build Faster Fund as information.
Discussion. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Through the mayor to council, I think my only concern with the correspondence is I'm not convinced that the rural perspective will be incorporated into the feedback as they suggested in the letter. There isn't much rural representation on the, sorry, I don't have it in front of me, the task force, but I'm not sure there's much we can do to change that.
Yeah, and I would certainly second that. I think that they've announced 10% of overall funding, which is a $400 million, $400 million, it's about $40 million a year, $120 million that will go to our rural municipalities that aren't part of the haven't set a housing target. The problem with that is that works out to about $40 million a year for 396 municipalities. So Irene, I would suggest a check of maybe $5 is coming your way. And not to be cynical, but that's really the amount of, it sounds like a lot of funding, but it's not. Even the $1.2 billion is nothing compared to the amount of housing targets that are out there. Really, I hate to say it, it's more of a shell game about who's going to get funding out of this. Municipalities were required to, there's only so much funding, but everybody's going to try to get it. And you have to have 80% of your target met to qualify for the funding. the real piece of the puzzle that's missing here is the recognition that municipalities don't build housing. We approve it. We're an approval authority. So now we're at the mercy of well, we're not, because we're not part of the program. We're part of the 10%. But even those that are do not have control over whether these funding whether they get built, and therefore uncontrolled how much funding they're actually eligible to get. My guess is that the estimates that were shown to different municipalities will be far less. I know Woodstock's report where they were given numbers that could mean, I believe, like 1.7 million up to $4 million. The odds of them getting that with the numbers, they have a target of 5,500, whereas some have hundreds of thousands on their target, and they're actually developing faster. So I don't know if this was the most appropriate action to take. It's certainly not going to benefit Ingersoll very much, or Oxford County for that much, because Oxford County doesn't have a housing target. It's only Woodstock. So certainly would love to see certainly it's a new minister. Steve Clark resigned, as well as his staff has been moved around. So we'll see what happens with the new ministry, but certainly just a drop in the bucket of what's needed towards infrastructure improvements to make sure that housing gets built. And certainly nothing against the application we just saw, but it was originally approved in 1991. And we're just seeing an application. We're still at the application phase. No housing has been built. Now it does seem like it will. So again, this is another example of why we approve things and builders build them. And so we will have no control over and how this will work. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And moving on to Town of Tillsonburg cellular coverage, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please again.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the Town of Tillsonburg regarding a requested cellular coverage service effectiveness review as information, and that Council directs staff to issue a letter of support for the Town of Tillsonburg's request to be circulated to the Town of Tillsonburg and Bell Media. Discussion. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. No, definitely, this is something that, first world problems, right? We can't get any cell service. I know the Canby plant is a little bit of a dead zone, not the Canby plant, but the soccer field's a little bit of a dead zone. And when you're over there, definitely better service across everywhere is definitely going to be beneficial for everybody involved.
Yeah, I can certainly support that. Well, I think it doesn't take, when you're in an urban area, you have cell service, but it doesn't take very long to get outside before, whether you go north or south, there's a lot of areas that need inclusion. And I know that the Western Waters Caucus had talked about, after broadband, did they focus on this? Because it's another issue that's hindering economic development in rural areas throughout, because there's just no cell service. So super glad to support that and Tillsonburg's request. For discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we will go to OPP police record check revenue. Councillor Louise, please.
Moved by myself, Councillor Louise, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the OPP regarding the distribution of police record check revenue to municipalities as information.
Discussion. Just one question to our treasurer. Is this what was expected to happen, or is this a change in policy?
No, it is a change in the policy due to the changes. Now the records can be obtained online. Before they were obtained here physically, people had to come in and get the records checked. So they will continue to share this revenue, but it's going to disappear by 2026, 8, I don't remember. Yes. And it's not a large source of revenue for us anyway, so it's not a concern.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And that will take us to Rail Safety Week. I thought we did that one. No, just Councillor Halleru, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Halleru, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the resolution from CN concerning Rail Safety Week as information.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now we will go to 27 Oxford County Strong Mayors. Councillor Hudson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the resolution from Oxford County regarding strong mayor powers as information.
Discussion. I would ask council to go one step further and ask them to support the resolution. This was brought forward. I was not the author of this. I moved it. It was brought forward by the warden, Marcus Ryan. He authored the motion. I was happy to move it, and Woodstock Councillor Bernie Wheaton was happy to second it. I think it's important that in Oxford County we showed that we do not support for the county level strong mayor's powers, and I certainly don't support it at any level. But it was also important that we should send the message to the province that if there's going to be any restructuring of Oxford County, it needs to be done in cooperation with our local municipalities and the county, and that has to be an agreement before anything happens. And that was this motion was subject to a recorded vote, whereas 9 members of council voted yes, and it was the mayor of Woodstock that voted in the negative. Consequently, they are currently considering whether they'll have strong mayor powers. So I don't know if that played a part, but that was the outcome of the vote. But I would ask that council consider supporting this to show our support for the current system that we have, and that be forwarded as requested to the members. So I certainly can make that amendment. Signed by Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence. Discussion? Seeing none. Oh, so discussion. Yes, Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence on the amendment.
I think that we have to send that message. Yeah, so I totally support it, and I hope all council will too. I thank you for being the voice at County Council for us, because this is, yeah, we're in strange times, and I think we need to send that message back to county and to send it onwards to our MPP and ministry and the whole bit. So thank you.
Thank you for the second. Councillor Halleru.
Yeah, I think showing unity in something like this, because it's unfair, because as a region, we're all growing, and everyone has their fair share of reasons why people come to their, small towns. It would create unnecessary competition, and I don't think that being a strong mayor power is going to help the dynamic in Oxford County. So it's only fair that we all come together and band to make this statement. So I support this.
Excellent. Further discussion? See, on the amendment, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And then on the amended motion, further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much for that. That will be very well received at county and hopefully in the Premier's office as well. And we are now going to do, oh wait. Yes, so we are going to go down and skip bylaws at this point, just in case, and we are going to go to the notice of motion introduced by Councillor Halleru. The notice of motion was received 6 days before the deadline, so we can consider it this evening if there's a seconder for the motion. And so, Councillor Halleru, I will turn over to you to read your motion, and then we'll continue from there. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just before, can I say something before I read this? All right, I'll go ahead and read it. Yes.
You'll be first on the list to speak.
So moved by myself. Any seconder for the motion?
You need to read the motion.
Okay.
And then if there's
Okay. All right. So whereas in our fast-paced and ever-changing times, staying informed and networking with other municipalities is crucial for our town's growth and development, and whereas it has come to our attention that there other municipalities are effectively utilizing conferences to benefit from knowledge sharing and networking opportunities, and whereas the current approach to conference attendance by council members may result in inefficiencies and potential waste of time in planning, and our council meetings are scheduled once a month, providing less time for planning and coordination of conference attendance to ensure maximum benefit for our town, and the individual council members have unique insights and priorities that could greatly benefit our community if aligned with relevant conferences of town priorities. Now, therefore, I, Councillor Halleru, move to have our council review and restructure processes of council attendance at conferences. Furthermore, I propose that conference attendance by council members be considered on a cost limit basis with a focus on eliminating wasteful expenditure and ensuring that conferences align with the priorities and goals of our town. Finally, I suggest that council members be encouraged to proactively identify conferences that can benefit the town and present their proposals during council meetings, allowing for discussion, planning, and booking with the aim of maximizing and positive impact for our community.
Mayor Wilson. Discussion, Councilor Howard.
So the reason I kind of thought we should reflect on how we do this is because in the last AMO meeting, Deputy Mayor had to put a request to council to approve her second visit at a conference. And the fact that we do have a list of conferences at the beginning of the year that we can proactively take a look at, it may be that there are some conferences that may benefit us in a competitive world when we talk about whether it's the good roads, whether it's, the building and housing market that has so many diverse offerings. I mistakenly bumped into a conference in Toronto on just a private visit, and I thought, wow, if we could be at something like this. So I imagine that there must be a way that we can appropriate the cost limits that could easily make someone go for one or two conferences, or could potentially allow someone to go for up to 3 conferences and benefit the town rather than wait to have someone see a conference, come to council, approve it before we go for it. So I think if we're looking to be competitive in the world of information and how people are doing things new, it just makes sense that we perhaps have a cost limit rather than a conference attendance limit, because we're all here to basically get more information for the town. And that's the reason I put this forward.
Through you, Mayor, I seconded more for purpose of discussion to have the discussion. I didn't personally feel like bringing that to council was a detriment to my experience. I just had to think ahead and one extra step. So, I mean, open, obviously, how other councillors feel, but I didn't necessarily have an issue with how that process played out for me personally.
Yeah, I can speak to this as well. Certainly, council does discuss the process on how much what kind of representation they would like to see at different conferences through the budget process. And so we did actually raise I think it's $19,000 this year, because we did get the sense that more councillors would want to go, especially in your first year, to more conferences and to have those identified. Certainly, there is no limit on the amount of conferences that one can attend. It's just the policy right now is that everybody's entitled to one, and then it's a process where you come notify council that you would want to attend another one. I had to do the same process as I attended Roma, and then I wanted to attend AMO as well. And the reason behind that is that there is accountability through the budget process, that we do have $19,000. Certainly, last year as well, Councillor Halleru, you did bring for a motion to attend another conference as well. So, and that was not one of our regularly scheduled events, but council did see the benefit of someone attending that. And so that was approved. So it does account accountability. Certainly we want to have people attend conferences and bring back the knowledge. That's the whole point of them, is to go network, get the knowledge from them, have delegations meeting with ministers. I feel that our current policy allows us to do that. Most conferences are scheduled well in advance of opportunities for, usually they're yearly, so there's time, some are not, but there is the ability to have a special meeting called if that's what's necessary to, if there's a time frame that can be asked for. I think we do need to, as a council, we ask staff to be diligent in their budgeting and look forward, especially we're now going into a multi-year budget process to see what kind of forecast that we're going to see. And I would ask the same of council as well, that we look forward, do the research in this time and have that ready for budget discussions. If there is council considerations that they want to attend that's not on the list, that, you know, we put that out there so all council can know. But again, if things come up, we can certainly, our policy does allow for the ability to do that. Councillor Halleroo.
Just so that perhaps we're in competition or aligned with so many others, I did get feedback that most municipal councils actually have more of the limit than waiting on approvals, like I said, because of time reasons. So I think it may be contingent on us to review that process. I'm not sure if it's something that I didn't certainly feel like it was open. I felt like it needed permission, and so there's a reason why there may be hesitation sometimes. And I guess, like the Deputy Mayor said, it's his research, but it's just another way of getting more conferences, I guess, attended than waiting for approvals.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In my years of being on council, I have never seen us not deny anybody for going to a conference. I'm fine with the way that things have been scheduled. I don't necessarily think that we need to change it in that respect. We have the amount of money. If there's a council member who thinks that this would be a great conference to go to, I'm all for it. I have no problem in fact, if we didn't have a council meeting, I would suggest that we call a special meeting to approve it in that respect. You know, if it's that short of notice that, you know, there wasn't enough time to get it in there, whatever the case might be, I would have no problem in us meeting for a special council meeting. So I think that our policy is covering everything at this point in time. And I'm sorry, but I just can't support your motion in that respect. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I think that we have everything covered, and I certainly would never disregard somebody from, you know, wanting to go to a conference and being able to bring back information to this community in that respect. So we'll always support that, and I think that we should leave our policy as it is at this point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Further discussion?
I have a question.
Question? Yep, absolutely.
Is there a policy that states that every council member should at least go for one conference, even if it's once a year? Is there a policy that states that?
There is not a policy. I think it would be hard to dictate that someone has to. Again,
And their terms are not a year.
It's not referenced anywhere in the Municipal Act. It's a duty of councillors to go to conferences. So we can only act in powers that are given to us from the municipality. So certainly I would encourage people, if it's all possible, to attend conferences. I find certainly there's valuable conversations, there's workshops, there's ideas and a chance to move a policy forward and learn. But certainly I don't think we can force that upon somebody, especially people's schedules and stuff like that may not allow for that. The important thing is that if there is something as a collective that council wants to make sure is a part of, to get that knowledge, is that's brought forward and someone does attend a conference that is available to make sure that knowledge is brought back. So I think that's an important part of. Again, I think the most important part of what our policy does right now is it provides accountability. And it's the same as when we did our procurement policy there, that we're notified, that council's notified what members of council, so there is an interest, maybe somebody else is interested in going as well, and make sure that knowledge can be shared. Because again, that is what it's about. I agree with many of your points. My opinion right now is that our current policy can accommodate all those. And again, if it doesn't, then we can certainly meet as a council to make sure that we have that taken care of.
Okay, my final comment. When we go for conferences, there's delegations that we can attend to at different times. I find it very ineffective where if 1 or 2 people go for a conference and there's different delegations, there's a chance for, say, 3, 4, 5 people to gather information and bring back. It's hard for just 1 or 2 people going for a conference to bring back all that information, which is why if it's something that easily becomes, you know, exciting for the whole council, for example, when they go and gather information together. I just find that having to apply for one conference at a time, I'm just looking at it from a different perspective where collectively going for conferences, at least half of council or something, is better than 1 or 2 because of what happens at conferences. Statistically, people who go for conferences and come back with that excitement, enthusiasm, get to be more open-minded and boldened about making those decisions that maybe seem a little far-fetched. And I just feel like it's something that kind of slows councils down when we take conferences as something that 1 or 2 people can go, because that's not the essence of you know, being able to gather that information and bring back. But I rest my case. I understand where you guys are coming from.
Yeah, and just I will comment on that there's certainly not a limit to just 1 or 2 people. That was just what council approved every application that's come forward to go to a conference. So certainly different people's schedules certainly are. I'm sure you can understand that having a busy schedule or work can sometimes get in the way. And so it's certainly, I would love to have a delegation where all of council's there, because sometimes, I can tell you, our deputy mayor and I were in a room with Mr. Graves for one of our delegations, and they have the ministry always brings a line of people, much like staff, and then it's 1 or 2 people. It's an unfair fight. So it can be intimidating, but certainly the more the merrier, and certainly those are always good learning points on delegations and how they're done and the information that we can track from. So, okay. So with that, any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Through you, Mayor, just one final comment, I suppose. I don't necessarily disagree with the points that you made, and perhaps the policy could be improved, but at the end of the day, for me, we do have to decide where staff are spending their time and the return on the time that they're spending on those items. So again, you know, maybe there are some improvements to be made on the policy, but at the end of the day, for me, I don't necessarily think the time it would take for staff to update the policy gives us a really good return on that time. So while I appreciate the feedback and what you've brought forward, for me, it's more, you know, there's lots of things for staff to do as it is. So they'll get a good return on other items, hopefully.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify one point with respect to the delegations. So those delegations are put forward at the request of all of council. So we submit them then to the respective ministries. If they say, yes, we'll give you 15 minutes of time, and then the council members who are attending that conference will go and present that request as determined by council, but there are no decisions being made in those delegations. If there's any information that has to be brought back to the council meeting, council as a body makes those decisions. So I just wanted to clarify that piece, that just in case anybody's listening and thinks there's, you know, decisions being made behind closed doors or anything like that, those delegations are made as part of council brought forward to those ministries.
I was just talking about the different breakout sessions and information gathering, yeah.
No, if anything, the ministers are very good at not giving you any information. They're very trained on making sure that they hear you, and that's it. So, but yes. So further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Sorry, that is defeated. Sorry. Got used to saying. No, that was a bad chair decision. Not recognizing the vote. So now we will turn to bylaws, and I will ask that, sorry, we will have Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the mover have leave to introduce and go into committee of the whole on the following bylaws. 1, bylaw to designate and assume parts of Winders Trail and Moffett Ave, bylaw 23-5275. 2, amend zoning bylaw application ZN 6-22-05, bylaw 23-5276. 3, amend zoning bylaw for application ZN 6-23-04, bylaw 23-5277. 4, collective agreement for public works, bylaw 23-5278. 5, collective agreement for parks and recreation, bylaw 23-5279. 6, amend bylaw 23-5264, remove member from committees, bylaw 23-5280. And 7, confirmation bylaw September 11th, 2023, bylaw 23-5281. Council and Committee of the Whole, Mayor Petrie and the Chair. On motion, the bylaws are accepted as circulated, and that constitutes the first and second reading of the bylaws.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We're now in the Committee of the Whole. Would anybody discuss any of the bylaws? I'll just make comment. There are 2 on there for a collective agreement with Public Works and Parks and Recreation. I want to commend staff as well as our partners in Public Works and Parks and Recreation. From what I heard of the whole process and the feedback, that it was a truly collaborative process where each group worked collaboratively to come up with a better agreement that fit the needs of both our organization and their workers, which is paramount to us providing the services that we do for the community. We need those our workers to be engaged, and so I want to applaud both sides for going in good faith and making things happen in a very effective way, in a very collaborative way. So, and I want to thank Michael for creating that environment as well with his staff from the top down. And so I look forward to, yeah, I think it's a good deal. It's a fair deal that we certainly want to make sure that our employees are kept whole, and that we want them to be valued. They're very valuable and hard to come by. And so I thank staff again for making that happen. And yeah, and it's good to see that happened that way that it did. Any other discussion of the bylaws? Okay, I will now ask Deputy Mayor Wilson that the committee now rise to the Committee of the Whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the committee do now rise out of Committee of the Whole.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Hallerud, third reading of the bylaws, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hallerud, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that bylaw 23-5275 and 23-5281 be now read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed, as this constitutes the third reading of the bylaws.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So we will adjourn the meeting, and then maybe we'll have some announcements, if everybody has those. So, Councillor Hughes, will you adjourn the meeting, please?
Absolutely. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hallerud, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll adjourns the September the 11th, 2023 regular meeting of Council at 8:38 p.m.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So I did have a couple announcements. One, I was at a Harvest Fest and I had a booth to ask the mayor a question. So I thought I would give an update on the results of that. Probably the number one question was, when is the arena getting built? And the answer to that was, do you have $30 million you'd like to donate? And the answer is funding, right? So that was good to hear, but there was a lot of interest in that from the community, which we know because of the strategic plan, and we know that the community is looking forward to something happening there. The second one was around the train tracks and train whistles, which is always a topic of which we dealt with tonight. And then the third one was, what is being built and behind Dot Foods? So the good part of that is they now know what Dot Foods is, because that was a question that was coming up a lot before. And so the answer to that one, if anybody is interested, is that is being built by 241 Carson Co., and that will be looking to be rented out. And it's $325,000. Curtis, would you like to?
Sure, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So there's a 120,000 square foot building under construction right now on that site, and then there's a 233,000 square foot building to be constructed beside it. So those are available. My understanding is there's quite a bit of interest, but there's no firm tenant at this point in time. So something we're actively marketing for sure, but it's nice to see the building activity on that site. That's for sure. And there's a public open house for Dot Foods coming up this weekend. So a lot of good news coming from that property these days.
That's very good. And yeah, so I was busy all day long. I was wondering if I was going to get one question or what kind of questions it was, but I was busy all day long. So again, it's not just me, it's every member of council. If you're listening and you have a question, reach out to council. More than happy to either get you the answer or direct you in the right place to get the right answer to the question. We're fully transparent, unless very few items that we can't be on because of closed session rules. But other than that, that's what we're here for. And it was super fun. And yeah, the best ones came from kids, of course. They don't hold back at all. They ask you what you want. So those are the hardest ones. The only other thing was Deputy Mayor Wilson and I did attend AMO along with Michael for our delegations. It was a very busy time. We did have two delegations, one with led by Deputy Mayor with the Attorney General, and then the other one was with the Minister of Finance around our large industrial tax issue. And so that was moving forward. Hopefully, we asked for a meeting and they said they would have another meeting with us, which is about as much as you can get in a delegation time. You say hello and go through the very limited time that you have. So it was success with that. And again, Deputy Mayor Wilson did an excellent job at advocating for the issues around legal aid. Yes, I was going to say lawyers. No, legal aid for residents and the issues that caused with contributing to homelessness. So that was that. Is there any other? Oh, this weekend is the Battle of Britain on services at the cemetery. There were Sunday. I believe I will get that information for you. But that's the next thing that's coming up. And like Curtis said, Dot Foods is having their open house this weekend as well. Yes, Councillor Van Kooten-Bossence.
So there is also Take Back the Night March is happening on Thursday, September 21st at 6:30, and the meeting place, if I'm hoping that I'm not wrong, is Unifor. And so I encourage everyone, but mostly ladies. I think the gentleman, I've never actually attended one, I'll be very honest, because I always have Kiwanis on that night. But I am going to forego going to Kiwanis and come to this this year. And I do encourage ladies to go out and support each other. I think it's important. And before our next council meeting, we have Thanksgiving. And we have a lot to be thankful for in this community, and I hope that you have time that you can spend it with your families. I know I have a lot to be thankful for with my child going to school this year. We all need to be looking out for all those kids on the road as well. There's a lot of speeding that's going on. I notice it, I think, even more now that my child is walking up the streets to go to school, and I am making her walk to school, which is awesome. But please keep your eyes out for all those kids. They're not thinking when they get out of school. I can affirm that very, very well. They are just happy to get out of school, and they're not watching for you in a vehicle. So please be respectful. Please be respectful to all of our wonderful crossing guards who are doing their jobs out there of making sure that the kids get across the road as well. If that arm is up with that stop sign, please, I encourage you to stop. Do do not hit them. Do not hit the kids that they're trying to get across the road. I'm just saying, I witnessed a couple. So it's one of those things that, you know what, our kids are precious, and we just need to be thankful that we live in a small community. London, I can only imagine what they go through. But I think we have enough problems in our own, so we all need to just slow down a little bit and make sure that we're watching out for everybody. So be kind out there. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. I wish all of fellow council members a great time with your own families in October for that. And definitely out to the community. I hope that the community is able to spend their time with family, and to all of our staff as well. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor, please.
The event I'll point to is the 3rd Annual March for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th. They've got quite a few vendors and speakers, so they're, growing the event in recognition of people wanting to be engaged in that conversation. I'll point out the first year was shortly after the discovery of the bodies of children, and there were hundreds of people at the event because it was quite shortly after that. Last year, not so much. So I do encourage people to make the time to, at least, it's 4:30 to 8:30, meeting at Yvonne Mott Memorial Park and marching to the Ingersoll Cheese Museum. So, maybe you can't be there for the whole time, but certainly stopping in, I know, would be a great learning experience, and participating in truth and reconciliation outside of council.
Excellent. The only one I will highlight as well is that pickleball is coming on next Monday. We're open. The courts will be opened up, and I know lots of people will be excited about that. So anybody's welcome to come out to the pickleball celebrations at the Senior Center. And I think it's a busy time of month, it's a busy time of year still. So it is. So there's lots to do. There's lots to see. So anything else? All right, let's go home then.